My name is Mae, and I will tell you a story that has haunted me for years. People say grief is silent, but mine spoke louder than thunder. On the day of my husband's funeral, when mourners wept and prayers filled the air, I received a message that shattered my world. I am still alive. Trust no one. From that moment, nothing was the same. Fear gripped my heart, suspicion poisoned my mind, and every familiar face around me suddenly looked like a stranger wearing a mask. Was my husband truly alive, or was this a cruel trick meant to drive me to madness? I had to find the truth, no matter how dangerous it was, because behind every whisper, every shadow, and every smile, there was a secret waiting to destroy me. If you wish to hear more of my stories, please subscribe to my channel. I was 23 years old when I married Richard. He was tall, handsome, and full of promises that felt larger than life. Everyone in town admired him, his smile, his charm, his ambition, and to me, he was everything. I thought marrying Richard meant stepping into a life of safety and happiness, away from the struggles of my childhood. But happiness has a way of disguising itself before it disappears. The first years were sweet. We lived in a modest house with white curtains and a small garden where I planted roses. Richard worked long hours at the factory, but at night, he would hold me close and tell me stories about the life we would build together. We spoke of children, of traveling to places I had only seen in magazines, of growing old side by side. I believed every word. Then came the whispers. At first, little things. Women in town glancing at me strangely. A neighbor once muttering that I was too blind to see. Richard started staying out late, his clothes smelling of perfume that was not mine. And when I asked questions, his temper flared. "Stop doubting me, Mae," he would snap. "Do you want to ruin this marriage with your paranoia?" I would shrink into silence, ashamed of my suspicions. But deep down, I felt a shadow growing between us. Years passed, and that shadow thickened. Richard had secret letters he burned quickly before I could glimpse them. Phone calls he took outside, unexplained money hidden in drawers. Once, I even found a locked box beneath our bed. When I confronted him, he raised his hand as if to strike me, then stopped, breathing hard, his face twisted with anger. "You don't ever question me again," he said. His voice was cold, unlike anything I had ever heard. I obeyed. I told myself I had no choice. In those days, women like me depended on their husbands for everything. And yet, I prayed each night for God to reveal the truth, for light to pierce the darkness swallowing my marriage. Then, one winter evening, the news came. Richard had been killed in a car accident on the old highway. They said his body was burned beyond recognition, but the police identified him through personal belongings: a watch, a wedding ring. I remember screaming so loudly my voice broke. Neighbors had to hold me up as I collapsed to the floor. My Richard was gone, or so I believed. The funeral was arranged quickly. The coffin was closed, sealed shut. I never saw the body, though I begged. "It's better this way," the authorities told me. "You don't want to remember him like that." And so, I stood by that coffin, broken, surrounded by mourners, until the note came. That cursed, blessed note. "I am still alive. Trust nobody." My blood turned to ice. My tears dried instantly. And in that moment, I realized everything I thought I knew about my husband, about my marriage, about my life, was a lie. But if he was alive, hiding in the shadows, why had he faked his death? Who was lying in that coffin? And why warn me not to trust anyone? I clutched the note in my trembling hand, and for the first time in years, I felt more fear than grief. The note burned in my hand like fire, and yet I dared not show it to anyone. With trembling fingers, I tucked it inside my dress pocket, pressing it close to my heart. My tears had stopped, but my mind raced with 1,000 questions. If Richard was alive, why was I standing before a coffin? And why did he warn me not to trust anyone? The rest of the funeral passed in a blur. I remember hands shaking mine, faces offering sympathy, voices whispering comfort. But I could not hear them. My ears only echoed with Richard's words. "I am still alive. Trust nobody." That night, after everyone had left and the house was silent, I locked myself in my bedroom. My hands shook as I pulled the note out again, reading it under the lamplight. The handwriting was unmistakable. I had read Richard's words in love letters, on grocery lists, in hurried notes left on the kitchen table. This was his hand. There was no doubt. I whispered into the dark, "Richard." Why? But no answer came. Only silence. The days that followed were suffocating. Neighbors brought food, family came to visit, the priest offered prayers. I smiled weakly, nodded politely, but inside I was screaming. I had to know the truth. So I began to search late at night when the house was empty. I rummaged through Richard's things. I found old receipts, scraps of paper, photographs with faces I did not recognize. One picture made my blood run cold. Richard standing beside a woman, her arm linked with his, both smiling as if they were husband and wife. On the back, written in his hand, were the words, "To my love, forever yours." My knees buckled. I sank to the floor, clutching the photo to my chest, tears streaming down my face. Had Richard lived a double life? Was he hiding with her now, somewhere far away, laughing at the fool I had been? But if that were true, then why warn me not to trust anyone? One evening, as I sat by the window, staring at the empty street, there was a knock on the door. My heart leapt into my throat. I opened it slowly, and there stood a man I had never seen before. He wore a dark coat, his hat pulled low over his eyes. "Are you Mrs. Mae?" he asked in a low voice. "Yes," I whispered. He glanced around nervously before slipping a small envelope into my hand. He said, "You'd know what to do with this. And be careful. They're watching." Before I could ask who he meant, the man turned and hurried down the street. Disappearing into the shadows. My fingers shook as I closed the door and tore open the envelope. Inside was a single key and a note in the same familiar hand. "May, go to the old cabin. Trust no one, not even family, the old cabin." My heart pounded. Richard and I had once spent summers there, away from the world, when our love was still young and pure. No one else knew about it. I clutched the key, fear and hope wrestling inside me. Was Richard alive, waiting for me there? Or was this some cruel trick meant to destroy me? I stared out into the night, the key heavy in my hand, knowing that if I followed this path, my life would never be the same again. The key felt like it weighed 100 pounds in my hand. All night, I lay awake, staring at it, my mind running in circles. What if it was a trap? What if the coffin held someone else's body because Richard had been involved in something darker than I could imagine? And what if whoever killed him or helped him vanish was now watching me? By dawn, I had made up my mind. I would go to the cabin. I dressed in plain clothes, wrapped a scarf around my head, and left the house before sunrise. The streets were quiet, empty, save for the echo of my footsteps. I felt as though every window was watching me, every shadow holding a secret. The journey to the cabin was long. The road twisted through the woods, the air sharp and cold. Memories flooded me as I walked. Richard's laughter, the nights we sat by the fireplace, the promises he once whispered. My heart ached with both longing and dread. Finally, I reached the cabin. It looked abandoned, shutters hanging loose, the wood weathered, the path overgrown with weeds. My hand trembled as I slid the key into the lock. The door creaked open, the air inside heavy with dust and silence. I stepped in cautiously. At first, nothing seemed unusual, just old furniture, cobwebs, the smell of damp wood. But then I noticed a small trunk in the corner, newer than the rest of the room. My pulse quickened. I knelt, opened it, and gasped. Inside were stacks of money, foreign passports, and photographs. Some showed Richard with strangers, others with that same woman I had seen in the picture at home. One image chilled me the most: Richard shaking hands with a man whose face was half hidden, but whose eyes gleamed with something dangerous. Tears blurred my vision as I whispered, "What were you involved in, Richard?" Then I found another letter, folded neatly, tucked between the passports. My hands shook as I opened it. Double quotes, "May, if you are reading this, then you must know I had no choice. They wanted me dead. The man in the coffin was not me. I cannot explain everything now, it would put you in danger. But trust me, our family is not safe. Someone close to you has betrayed us. Do not tell anyone what you've found. Wait for me. I will come for you. My heart stopped at those words. Someone close to you has betrayed us. I staggered back, clutching the letter to my chest. Betrayed? By whom? My sister who had held me at the funeral. My son who had kissed my hand. A lifelong friend who brought me food each day. Every face I had trusted now looked like a mask hiding lies. Suddenly, the floor creaked behind me. I spun around, my breath caught in my throat. At the doorway stood my neighbor, Thomas. A man who had always been kind, always offering to help with groceries, always appearing at just the right time. But now his eyes were cold, his smile thin. You shouldn't be here, May, he said softly. Stepping inside, I froze, the letter still in my hand. How did you know I was here? His smile widened, but it was not kind anymore. Because I've been watching you, all along. My breath caught in my throat as Thomas stepped further into the cabin, his shoes crunching on the wooden floor. The way his eyes locked on me made my blood run cold. You've been spying on me? I whispered, clutching Richard's letter tighter in my hand. He chuckled softly, but it wasn't the laugh of the friendly neighbor who once carried my groceries or fixed my fence. No, this laugh was cruel, mocking. Spying, May, you make it sound so ugly. Let's just say, I was asked to keep an eye on you. By who? My voice cracked. He tilted his head, watching me like a predator sizing up prey. You already know the answer. I shook my head, panic rising. Richard. Did Richard send you? At that, Thomas's smile faltered, and for a split second, something dangerous flickered in his eyes. Richard. He hissed the name, spitting it out like poison. That man was a fool. Always thought he could outsmart everyone, but he couldn't outsmart me. The room spun around me. My knees felt weak. What do you mean? Richard is alive. I know he is. He left me this note. I raised the paper like a shield. Thomas lunged forward in a flash, snatching the letter from my trembling hand. He glanced at it and then laughed bitterly. Alive? Oh, he might be breathing somewhere, but alive? No, May. He's a dead man walking, and if you're not careful, you'll be the same. I staggered back, bumping into the old trunk. My eyes darted to the door, but Thomas blocked the way. His presence filled the room, heavy and suffocating. What do you want from me? I asked, tears stinging my eyes. He leaned closer, his voice dropping into a whisper. The money, the documents, everything Richard left behind, it belongs to me now. Hand it over, May, and maybe I'll let you live long enough to forget you ever saw me here. The trunk at my feet suddenly felt like both a blessing and a curse. If I gave him the money, would he truly let me go? Or would I be silenced, just like Richard had almost been? I swallowed hard. I don't understand. You were my neighbor. You were. Kind, Thomas sneered. Kindness was a mask. May, you were gullible, easy to fool. You think Richard's secrets were his alone? No, I was part of them too. We worked together until he decided to run. My heart hammered so loudly I thought it would burst. Run from what? Thomas's eyes gleamed with something dark. From us? From everything we built. He thought he could disappear, take the money, and live a quiet life with you. Pathetic. I gasped, stepping back again. So it was you. You arranged the accident. For a moment, silence hung heavy between us. Then Thomas smirked. Accident? That was no accident, May. That was a message, a warning. But Richard survived somehow. And now you stumbled into his mess. The cabin walls seemed to close in around me. I was trapped, the truth crashing down like thunder. Richard had betrayed me with lies, but Thomas had betrayed us both with something far worse. Suddenly, Thomas reached into his coat pocket. My heart stopped. The faint glint of metal appeared. A gun. Last chance, May, he said, his voice low and sharp. Give me what I came for, or this ends here. I clutched the trunk behind me, my mind racing. I had no weapon, no plan, only fear coursing through my veins. But deep inside, something fierce awoke a spark of survival I hadn't felt in years. I lifted my chin, forcing my voice not to shake. If you want it, Thomas, you'll have to kill me first. The cabin fell into silence, broken only by the sound of my own ragged breathing. Thomas stood before me, gun in hand, his finger twitching near the trigger. I could feel death staring at me dead, but something inside me refused to crumble. I had been weak for too long, weak when Richard lied to me, weak when whispers spread behind my back, weak when I believed the coffin held the truth. Not anymore. Do it, I said, my voice trembling but firm. Shoot me if you must, but know this: if you kill me, Richard will never forgive you. He's alive and he's watching. He will come for you. For the first time, doubt flickered in Thomas's eyes. He hesitated, his grip tightening, his jaw clenched. That pause was my only chance. Before I could think, the door burst open. Drop it, Thomas. I gasped. Standing there, ragged, dirty, but unmistakably alive, was Richard. His hair was longer, his face worn, but his eyes, those same eyes that once held promises. Thomas spun toward him, gun raised. You fool. You should have stayed dead. In that instant, Richard lunged. The two men crashed into each other, the gun clattering to the floor. They fought savagely, years of betrayal and rage exploding in every blow. I stumbled back, heart pounding, searching desperately for something, anything to help. My hand landed on the heavy brass lamp by the fireplace. Without thinking, I seized it and swung with all the strength left in my frail body. Crack. The lamp struck Thomas across the head. He fell to the ground, motionless. Silence returned, broken only by my sobs. Richard turned to me, breathing heavily, his shirt torn. Mae, I'm sorry. I should have told you everything. I trembled, tears spilling down my cheeks. You lied to me, Richard. All these years, you lied. And now I don't know who you are anymore. His face crumpled. I lied to protect you. Thomas and I, we were involved in things I regret deeply. When I tried to leave, they marked me for death. That's why I faked my accident. I had to keep you safe. I stared at him, torn between anger and relief, love and hate. Safe, do you know what it felt like to bury you? To think you were gone? You destroyed me, Richard. He dropped to his knees before me, his voice breaking. Mae, I am not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I swear, from this day forward, I will protect you with my life. If you tell me to walk away, I will. But if you let me stay, I will spend whatever years I have left making this right. My hands shook as I looked at the man I had once loved more than life itself. I saw the husband who had betrayed me. Yes, but I also saw the man who had risked everything to return, who had shielded me even through his lies. I closed my eyes, whispering, God, give me strength. When I opened them, I saw Richard's tears, glistening like a boy begging for mercy. I reached out, my fingers brushing his cheek. We cannot erase the past, but maybe we can survive what's left of the future. He bowed his head, sobbing quietly, and for the first time in years, I felt not just grief but a strange, fragile hope dot behind us. Thomas groaned faintly, still alive. Richard looked at me and nodded. We'll call the police. This ends tonight. As dawn broke through the cabin's dusty windows, I realized my life would never be the same. I had buried my husband once. This time, I would bury the lies and choose the truth, no matter how painful. Because I am Mae, and my story is not one of endings, but of survival.